Hey everyone, welcome to the 3D-Fueled show. On this week's episode, we're going to be talking about a couple pieces of news. The first one being Vision Miner releasing its 22 IDEX V4. We'll do a bit more of a dive into that printer, some of the details there. And then another piece of news is that CASTOR shuts down after 8 years of guiding companies into additive manufacturing. We'll touch on that. And then we'll hop into a couple of 3D-Fuel related things, and then we'll go ahead and answer your questions. I'm your host, John Schneider. I am the founder and CEO of 3D-Fuel. We're a filament manufacturing company here in the United States. And on this show, we talk about 3D printing news, our place within all of that, and kind of provide some more context and color to that news. And also kind of go into what it takes to be running a US manufacturing startup. In a lot of ways, we're a startup again, and we wear a lot of hats. So things like marketing, e-commerce, community management, all things that we'll kind of end up covering over the course of these episodes. So first, let's go ahead and dive into those news stories. So Vision Miner, which is a 3D printer manufacturer based out in California, so very cool, another US manufacturer, they have released their 22 IDEX V4. So one of the really cool things about what Vision Miner is doing is they're making 3D printing some of the engineering grade materials much more attainable. So some of the details about this particular 3D printer are that it can print at a high temperature. They've gone and improved a lot of things from version 3. And when you compare this to something like a Stratasys 3D printer and its ability to be able to 3D print PEEK, PEC, Ultem, PPSU, other high temperature engineering grade materials like that, this is at a fraction of the price of a Stratasys printer, and it uses an open material format, so you're not locked down to just one filament manufacturer. So some of the details here. Price point, first, we'll just talk about that. It is just under $15,000 at $14,900. Now, this is certainly not a hobbyist level 3D printer, but we're not printing hobbyist level 3D printing materials. Yes, can some of the Bamboo Lab 3D printers print some high temp-ish materials? Yes, but we're talking a completely different factor of reliability and consistency and size that you're able to print with a Bamboo versus printing with something like this IDEX 22. It is able to handle those high temperatures with the nozzles able to hit 500 degrees Celsius. That's definitely something a Bamboo can't do. The bed temperature gets up to 200 degrees Celsius, and the chamber hits an impressive 100 degrees Celsius. So we're getting into a territory where it's difficult to do something like this in a normal desktop, kind of like a budget desktop 3D printer, because to hit these temperatures, you need to have so many more kind of some of them are safety features built in, but you also need to make sure that you're protecting your electronics from these high temps. For example, you don't want to have your control board exposed to a 100 degrees Celsius printing environment, because you're going to start to have some of those components fail because they're not rated or spec'd to run at those high temperatures. So all of these add complications. This printer has triple wall insulation, so you're effectively having a little oven that you have a 3D printer inside of. So that's another area where you can't just have a basic aluminum or steel enclosure and hope that it retains the heat. You really need to make sure you have something that's insulated. Otherwise, you're going to be leaking that heat. You're going to have to be using so much more electricity to maintain that heat level. And it's just going to make it so you're not able to print those other high temp materials. You're going to have warping, you're going to have cracking, you're going to have delaminating. So this helps to make sure that you have that nice, warm, stable environment for printing these engineering grade filaments. It also has a welded steel frame and a stainless steel interior. This helps the printer to retain heat more efficiently, and it also helps for faster warm-up and better dimensional consistency, helping to hold all of that heat in. It's also impressive because this entire printer runs off of a single 110 volt circuit. So yes, you probably want to have a dedicated 15 or 20 amp circuit to be running this printer, but you're not going to need to have an electrician come in to provide 220 volt or higher service in order to run this 3D printer. Some of the other improvements over version 3, it has externalized the X and Y motors and now has advanced trinamic drivers for higher torque and longevity. So you're able to achieve travel speeds of up to 500 millimeters per second and accelerations up to 15,000 millimeters per second squared. It has a triple Z motor bed, which provides mechanical self-leveling. So it's not just doing probing and then using software to help level that bed. It is physically leveling that bed for you using those three discrete Z-axis motors. It also has a new one-touch calibration routine. This automatically helps to align both the tool heads and to also tension the belts to make sure that you always have the proper belt tension. And because this is a true IDEX 3D printer, it has dual tool heads on it that can print either in mirror mode or in copy mode. So you could be having the extruders creating mirror images across the x-axis or the y-axis, mirrored along the y-axis, I think is what I'm wanting to say, and or you could have it be printing two objects at the same time. So this is beneficial when you are doing production level parts. You may not need to have the entire print volume for just the one for just one part. If you're printing multiple smaller parts, this kind of helps not quite double your throughput, but pretty close. It also has built-in HEPA and carbon filtration, automatic safety lockouts, a pretty big thing if you're going to be in an enterprise environment. And it also has mounting points for mobile or containerized installation. This was likely developed due to Vision Miner's growing defense and field deployment customers. Having a deployable 3D printer in a military or defense context is starting to be a bigger deal for the military. When I was at Essentium, that was one of the big initiatives that they had, was working with a partner in order to ruggedize the 3D printer so that it could be deployed in a field operating position. And if you needed to be 3D printing replacement parts in the field, in situ, you were able to do that instead of waiting for your normal supply lines or supply chain to get you that replacement part. Now, it may just end up being a temporary replacement part until you get the OEM part from the manufacturer, but this allows allows soldiers to be 3D printing the repair and replacement parts that they need as they need it. As we start seeing more and more, battlefield tactics involving, tactics and strategy involving drones, and the need to 3D print replacement drone parts, that starts to be a very competitive advantage. Very strong competitive advantage when you're in the battlefield and you're deployed out there. Like I mentioned, the printer still runs on standard 110 volt power. It also claims to have non-planar readiness, which, if you think about those independent Z-axis motors, this may mean that it is able to print along a curved surface by changing the angle of the bed. So as the tool head is going over the bed, so basically being prepared for something that isn't quite being accomplished by today's slicers, but could be accomplished by the slicers of the future. Like I mentioned, open materials platform. They're not trying to lock you into any particular material. If you guys haven't watched any of the Vision Miner content, I recommend doing that. They have a very high production value for their content, certainly better and beyond what I'm currently doing. But they've just got a really nice energy about them too. So definitely check them out. We're not currently making any materials specifically for Vision Miner, but we do have some materials that could be well suited to a Vision Miner 3D printer. We have some carbon fiber and glass fiber reinforced materials that will be coming very, very soon. So moving on to the next item. Sorry, I'm still waking up. I'm a day behind, 2 days behind in shooting this, a day behind in posting it. So it is Saturday morning as I'm filming this. So CASTOR is a company that I wasn't really familiar with. This article that I was reading, this news piece, comes from Fabaloo. They reference a LinkedIn post from one of their co-founders. And the way that it reads, well, here, let me back up. So what does CASTOR do, or what did CASTOR do? So they didn't make any 3D printers. They didn't manufacture materials. What they did is they acted as a consulting firm or consulting kind of interface to help companies begin to use 3D printing technology. So think companies that have a vast library of parts. They have the CAD files. They are trying to figure out, okay, how do we get all of these parts, have them so that they are 3D printable? So they had, kind of, some of it, I think, was more hands-on independent consulting, with an actual human involved. Some of it, I think, was leveraging AI and some automations in order to help identify which parts were suitable. This company was going for 8 years. To me, this is a notable shutdown because it is, well, for two reasons. One is I think it's a reflection of the current 3D printing industry and how it's really morphed. The writing on the wall for this should have been a little bit more apparent. But then the other reason is just, I think, the personal side of why they decided to shut this down. So on the first part, why this type of company, I think, just had, kind of ran its course. You have so many more people now that have grown up with 3D printing. I mean, we talked about it when we started selling 3D printers over a decade ago. We were going into schools, we were helping teachers learn how to use the 3D printers. They were teaching CAD and design courses. I mean, we're talking elementary, middle school, high school students. So this whole crop of students has come up through the educational system. They've graduated high school, they've gone into college, and now they've graduated and are in the workforce. And so these companies, these larger legacy companies, they don't need to have someone that is guiding them from the outside in how to select what parts are suitable for 3D printing. They don't need someone to guide which 3D printer technology they should be using, because they have, quite frankly, low-cost recent college graduates, some of them that are very passionate about this field and are more than happy to help out and to help a company identify these things themselves internally without needing to pay kind of an outside firm. So that is, I think it's just an indicator of the maturation of the 3D printing industry and how so many more companies are taking it seriously and able to utilize it in a functional way. Also, because the 3D printers are getting easier to use, they're getting easier to understand. The software, the design software, is starting to get easier to use and understand. There's less of a need for outside assistance. You can get a lot done with a $1,000 printer and a couple of weekends just learning some stuff on the side. So that's on the the actual business side of it, but on the personal side, I think there you can really read between the lines here on some stuff. So this is from their co-founder Omer Blair, and I may be mispronouncing that. I'm sorry. The past 8 years have been a roller coaster. We've gained some new friends and some enemies, faced amazing situations with investors, customers, partners, employees worldwide, and while we achieved the highest levels of satisfaction, we also paid a heavy personal price at home, at the bank. I can relate to both of those for certain. CASTOR served as proof that even with a great idea, a dedicated team, a lovable product, and a large number of paying customers, navigating the unstable environment we live in requires more than that. Despite the outcome, I look back with immense pride in how we conducted ourselves. We maintained a constant race for improvement, an obsession with customer satisfaction, and a fully transparent and professional decision-making process. So, I mean, I can tell you from having done not one, not two, but I've kind of lost track of how many times we've kind of gone through the startup mode. I don't know that we've ever really exited startup mode. We've got, so Four Bears, our dog, is down here right now. So normally it's the cats that are vying for my attention, but right now it's Four Bears. I don't think you're going to be able to see him, but he's a little pitty mix rescue. Well, not little, I'd say kind of medium-sized dog. But going back to kind of the toll that not just being in a startup, but being the person that is behind the startup, that is bootstrapping it from the beginning, that is borrowing money in order to make it happen. You put everything on the line. It's very much a hold on, Four Bears. Yeah, you might want to go out here in a second. I may end up cutting this part out. So back to CASTOR. So on the personal side, having a startup, when you're kind of backing it yourself, you're doing everything on on the financial side, you're having to take time, far more than 40 hours a week. We're talking 60, 80, some weeks 100 hours, but it's your baby and you're trying to grow this thing. And in some cases, you're hoping that it works out. You're trying to do everything that you can to make sure it survives. And that takes a toll. If you're spending 100 hours a week doing something, that means there's 60 hours that you're not doing something else on top of on top of a normal workload. But like if I was an employee, I wouldn't be putting in nearly the amount of hours, but because I've put everything on the line to build this, I don't know, it takes a lot out of you. It really takes a lot out of you. And sometimes you get home and you don't have energy for much else. You don't have the energy to be investing into family the way that you should. You don't have the energy to be investing in your health the way you should, or in your social life, having friends, meeting up with them. That all takes time, that all takes planning. And when you're in a constant state of, I guess, not even a constant state of panic, but a constant state of panic preparedness, you're always very, you can be kind of high strung. You can be short because you're just waiting for the next thing that's going to go wrong. And you can always be planning and analyzing, and this is where anxiety can be helpful, is trying to prepare for the worst so that if the worst should happen, then you're ready for it and you can kind of tackle that. But that also means that you're in that constant state of alert, and that's draining. Sometimes when you finally have a moment to relax, you don't realize how tired you are or how hard you've been pushing. And I mean, pushing for 8 years, I mean, we've been doing 3D-Fuel, or in some way, shape, or form, the filament manufacturing and 3D printed related business for me since 2012. I mean, we're coming on 13 years. That can start to wear on you, and sometimes you have to make those hard decisions. That if you want the other parts of your life to remain in balance with the work and with the business, you can't do everything. There are not enough hours in the day to do everything. And then you have to add on to it the financial obligations. Okay, well, the bank is going to want you to pay back any loans that you're borrowing. If you have investors, now that's one more party or parties that you need to be worrying about keeping happy, keeping informed. They want to have a return on their investment. There's a reason they gave you that money to do what you're going to do. And yes, it's a higher risk than putting money elsewhere. But you just have to be okay with the fact that sometimes those things are going to fail. They're not going to work out the way you want them to, and you just have to keep pushing on. So, CASTOR team, I can certainly empathize with you guys. I can sympathize with a lot of it. It's not easy. And, I kind of applaud you for making that decision of, hey, it's time to move on to the next thing. Sometimes you have to close that chapter, and that's okay. That's part of it. This industry in particular, that is absolutely part of it. Additive manufacturing is certainly a volatile industry, and sometimes you get lucky and sometimes you don't. So after that, sorry, that was kind of some heavy topics, but let's go ahead into some 3D-Fuel happenings. So we have launched our Black Friday Cyber Monday sale. It feels like every year we are needing to do this earlier and earlier. It's not so much a Black Friday Cyber Monday weekend. It's more like Black Friday Cyber Monday month. So the big thing is we're not doing a huge discount this year like we have in the past. I know in past years we've done things like a 20% off or 25% off sale, but we've normally had it for a shorter period of time, or we've only had it on specific products. I asked in a poll a while back if you would prefer that we had a more consistent lower retail price point for our filaments, or if you would want us to have more frequent, deeper discount sales. And overwhelmingly, you voted to have a more consistent lower price. So in order to do that, that means that when we do have a sale, it's not going to be the super deep discounts that we otherwise might have. Like this is 15% off of Pro PCTG, and that's because we're really wanting that material to get into more people's hands, and for more people to start printing with it. We also have, 15% off of Pro PCTG. That brings it down to $25.46 per kilogram. So if you've been waiting to try Pro PCTG, now is the time. We've also had a 10% off discount for our Pro PETG. That brings it down to $26.06. Yes, you heard that correctly. We have our Pro PCTG with this sale priced below Pro PETG. We also have our Tough Pro PLA Plus for 10% off. That brings it down to $29.66 per kilogram. And our standard PLA Plus with that 10% discount is $23.36 per 1 kilogram spool. So if you haven't tried 3D-Fuel materials, now is the time. We also have some small quantity discounts that go on top of that, and we have free shipping in the contiguous United States on orders over $75. Last bit of 3D-Fuel news is that we will be attending Formnext 2025 in Frankfurt, Germany this year. We will have one more 3D-Fueled show episode before we go to the show. I'm currently planning out which booths we want to be stopping and talking to. So we're not exhibiting this year. We're just going to be attending. This is going to be my first time attending Formnext. I've always wanted to, but typically circumstances, whether they were financial or with other time obligations, meant that I wasn't able to go and attend. But I'm looking forward to seeing people that I know there, seeing people that I haven't talked to in a while. If you would like to meet up and you're also going to be at Formnext, please shoot me a message. We're going to be there most of the 18th, all of the 19th, and it's looking like we'll be there for part of the 20th as well of November for Formnext. It'd be great to meet up, just grab a coffee or some other drink. I love talking industry news. I love talking to people that haven't seen in a while. So I hope to see you there. So moving on to the questions and answers and comments part of things. Looking through comments on last week's episode. Last week's episode, we talked about the Prusa Core 1L and the open print tag announcement. We also talked about our Coyote Brown Pro PCTG release, and those were kind of the three big topics we talked about. So first comment from GP3 Designs. Really excited for the Core 1L. I do appreciate Prusa's approach to design, lots of optimizing, and making the most of the space and equipment you may already have. Also looking forward to the new profiles you'll be coming out with. I assume there will be options for the major slicers, Prusa, Orca, and Bamboo. So yes, we are in the process of updating our profiles right now. I know some of you have reached out to me about some of the non-stock hot-end profile updates or new profiles. We've been so busy getting our new production lines up and running. Unfortunately, some of this had to take a back seat. But we have our Core 1L on the way. I received the shipping notification yesterday, so we should have that sometime next week. I don't know that we're going to have the profile out quite yet, but we should have those out hopefully before Formnext, so at least the profile is in place. We're also working on getting that baked into Prusa Slicer. We do have some of our profiles baked in now, but they're as a template, not as a specific printer profile, so we're working on updating that. For profiles, we are focusing on the primary slicer or the default slicer for each printer. For example, we're building out a profile for the Bamboo Labs in Bamboo Lab printers, but only for Bamboo Studio, not for Orca Slicer yet, because most people, when they are looking to get started with start printing, they're going to go with the default slicer. They're typically the people that are least likely to make tweaks or changes to a profile. So that's why we're starting there. And then eventually we will do Orca Slicer profiles, Prusa Slicer. For Prusa, of course, we're going to be doing Prusa Slicer profiles first, and then we'll work on Orca. Let's see. From Printed Trucker, still wanting and waiting to get my hands on some PCTG. I print PETG 99.8% of the time. I like the improved performance that PCTG delivers. Thank you. Appreciate that. Let's see, Specialized with Spooner, open tags is amazing. Yeah, we've been getting a lot of comments about that. We're still working with Prusa to kind of figure out how we're going to be implementing that. Then from Timothy Dorian, looks awesome. Prusa nailed it again. Definitely want one. It opens up new possibilities for 3D printing. We agree. From I Guess I'll Fix It, awesome background. The set is really coming together slowly, very slowly. I was hoping to have the multi-board mounted to the wall and screwed in, and then I couldn't figure out where I put the box of screws that I needed for that. So that is hopefully going to be done by next week. Let's see. From Helix 4D, Cheedy really needs to get on board with this. It would help ease the sting of the issues with their AMS system. I'm not holding my breath, though. So it sounds like there are some issues with the Cheedy box. We don't have one in-house ourselves. I think we're going to be getting in a Q2 so that we can be giving it a try. We'll see. From Solar Bear DIY, I'm not sold on the RFID tag. I've gone this far without it. It just seems like an extra step to rewrite. We hear you. I don't think that the open tag is for you in that case. But this is going to be for people that really keep a closer eye on their filament library. They like to track it that way. We're still, like I said, we're still dialing in the implementation. We'll see how this all ends up working out. From Rhubarb1, in an April 25th interview with 3D Printing Nerd, you spoke about a true carbon fiber PCTG for mechanical purposes. Any update on that? Yes, we are just needing to swap out our barrel for a hardened barrel. And then we'll be running the carbon fiber PCTG. We'll be running more matte black Pro PCTG because we use a small percentage of carbon fiber in that to provide that matte finish. And we are also going to be running a glass fiber PCTG. So more on that. We're hoping to have that run this week so that we can get testing done and start getting the product launch put together for all of that. Okay, from Where Nerdy is Cool. I have to give you big kudos on the filament profiles you offer for PCTG. On my A1, I 3D printed a hinge and it was able to open and close with ease. On the Cobra S1, I printed the same part with default settings and that hinge is fused open. As to the Prusa, honestly, they keep arriving late to the party. This version is really what they should have made. Making a smaller print volume, no camera, and no active filtration, among other things, was just darn stupid. All their competitors have those things, and at half price in many cases. The $17.99 price seems a bit high to me, but if they are promising dimensional accuracy, that certainly has value. Most of the hobby folks won't care if their dragons and benchies are 0.5 millimeters out of spec. I agree with you on that. Back on the profile side, yes, thank you. And we're working to make the profiles even better. But for Prusa, yeah, I mean, they're not going after your simple hobbyist. They're not. I mean, they're going after people that are operating print farms or that are kind of up market where they want to be operating and they need that dimensional accuracy. They want to be using more of the higher end engineering filaments. Think of Prusa and what they're trying to do as almost bridging the gap between a Bambu Lab printer and the IDEX, the Vision Miner IDEX 22 that we talked about earlier, where the Prusa is able to do some of kind of those mid-range high temp engineering materials, but not all the way up to the true high temp stuff. From Pip Design Shop, I've made a preset on my X1 Carbon at 50% of the normal speed. Having ridiculously fast print speed doesn't help when it makes printers fail. I'm looking forward to the new profiles. Yep, faster isn't always better. And with Pro PCTG, you can print faster than what we put in our profiles, but we're trying to aim for good mechanical strength and good surface finish, good visual appearance on the parts, because the whole selling point of PCTG is that it's a tougher material. If you're trying to print with it and you're trying to print fast, but those fast print settings mean that it's not as mechanically strong and mechanically tough as it could be, then you're kind of defeating the purpose. Let's see, with the new line, is it finally time for ASA and ABS? Possibly. We're not in a hurry to do that. We really want to be focusing on the product lines that we currently have, keeping those items in stock, releasing some new colors of PCTG, new colors of PETG, and also some new products that are aimed at print farms. And I think we're really going to be able to do some exciting things there. Let's see, from Dr. Boomstick, how much for the cat? For real? I want to know. No, you can't have him or her. Any of them. You can't have any of the 3 cats. Let's see. And then so the last comment here has to do with Prusa. This is from Sarah Hadkins, 2540. If they had said anything about this model, I would have purchased the Core 1L instead of the Core 1. But they're playing games and people aren't made of money. The print head still only goes up to 290 degrees C, and it's absurd to charge that much for a printer that was updated in every area but the print head. If you're truly open source, then increase the print head temperature. I'm so fed up trying to find a 3D printer that meets my needs. Why optimize everything but the print head while charging an outrageous price? So kind of an interesting take there. I hear you, where no matter when a company comes out with a new product, there's always going to be some frustration because some people are going to be upset that they just bought the previous version, or there's a sale and they just paid full price. That's unfortunately just the realities of it. If a company was going to give you the next 6 months what they're going to be releasing, what they're going to be discounting, you probably wouldn't spend the money. They have to at some point decide, here's when we're going to announce the price, and acknowledge that that is going to slow sales of that particular item until that discounted price is implemented. There's a reason why so many companies don't tease stuff too aggressively, or they tease it and only reveal part of it. Like Bambu Lab, for example, with their new Vortec hot end changing system. If they wouldn't have released that, more people would have bought a Snapmaker U1. That was a defensive move. Now, I think if Bambu would have done what they wanted to, they wouldn't have said anything about that hot end changing system until it was ready to take orders and they were ready to be shipping it. Because otherwise, you're going to have people like now that are holding off not on just buying or investing in a Snapmaker U1, but they're also holding off on buying the current models of Bambu Lab. At some point, the bean counters, the accountants, the financial people at Bambu Lab took a look at this, talked with the marketing team and said, okay, what is going to be, what's the risk of going through path A or going through path B? And ultimately, this is that fed into the decision that they made in announcing and teasing the Vortex system. On Sarah's point about Prusa not updating the hot end, the great thing about this is because Prusa is open source. If you want to upgrade the hot end, go for it. Like if you want to add a hotter printing ability hot end to it, you can go ahead and do that. I mean, the difference is Prusa won't be the ones supporting you if that causes other issues within the printer. I do also think that Prusa wants to make sure that when people are printing, they're having better success with their prints. And if they're trying to push the bleeding end of the hot end temperature just to say that they're pushing the bleeding end, or saying that it can hit 350 degrees C when really it can only be doing 290 degrees C reliably, these other printers out there, are they really able to hit 350 C as consistently as Prusa is going to be hitting 290 C? I don't know. I haven't done a comparison, but I think Prusa is aiming for that market where they just, they want to make sure if they're selling a printer to NASA that it's going to work, it's going to be reliable, it's going to have all of the security features and ease of repair that that customer is going to need. So that is it for the comments for this week. This was another episode that started to run a little bit long. I'm going to try and keep these a little bit more concise, unless you think the longer form, you prefer that, where we kind of dive into things a little bit more. But for for this week, that's going to be it. I want to thank you for listening or watching. If you haven't already, please go ahead, like, subscribe, hit that bell notification so that you find out when we do release a new video. It's not always going to be on the same day. I'm shooting for a more consistent release schedule, but right now when we have so many things in flux, it is going to be a little bit more inconsistent than I would like. And if you have a question, please leave it below. If you have a comment, I'd love to be able to answer any of that. So thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye.